Warren, you are a big believer in the U.S. political system, the financial system, and in every American. You've said that regardless of who is president, the economy and the U.S. consumer will continue to prosper over the long run. All that said, do you believe that people in this country are more divided today than 50 years ago, or is it just social media and media in general that blows this divide out of proportion? And if you do believe the divide has grown, what words of wisdom do you have to possibly help remedy it?
Now, I would say this, multiple times in my life, people have felt the country was more divided than ever, and I've gone through periods where people I knew and admired thought that because the other party was in power, that there never would be another election, that the Constitution would be. I've heard everything. Now, the interesting thing is, this paper from 1942, since then, there have been 14 American presidents. Just since my young venture into the stock market at 11, I've lived under 14 of the 44 presidents the United States has had. Now they call Trump 45, but they count Grover Cleveland twice. So there's really only been 44 presidents of the United States. And 14 of the 44 have been during this period when that $10,000 became 51 million. 7 have been Republicans, 7 have been Democrats. 1 has been assassinated, 1 has resigned under pressure. It works, you know. If you'd told me at the start, you know, that you'd have a Cuban Missile Crisis and you'd have nuclear weapons and you'd have a panic in 2000, financial panic, and you'd have many recessions, and you'd have war in the streets in the late '60s from a divided country, you'd say, why the hell are you buying stocks? And through it all, you know, America in fits and starts, but America really moves ahead. And we survived a civil war. I mean, I hate to think of having to do it that way, but this country, in only less than 3 of my lifetimes, if you go back 3 of my lifetimes, you go back 263 years, I guess, and Thomas Jefferson is 12 years old, and that's just 3. And there was nothing here. You know, you've flown in from all over to Omaha today, and you flew over a country with more than 75 million owner-occupied homes and 260 million vehicles and great universities and medical systems and everything. And it's all a net gain in less than 3 of my lifetimes. So, and we've had these events since I started buying my first stock. This country really works, and it always will have lots of disagreements. And after every election, you'll have people feeling the world is coming to an end, and you know, how could this happen? And I remember my future father-in-law in 1952. He wanted to have a talk with me before his daughter and I got married. So kind of reluctly, I sat down with him, and he said, Warren, he said, there's just one thing I want to tell you. He said, you're going to fail. He said, you know, the Democrats are going to get in, you know, they're going to take over the country, and you're going to fail, but don't feel responsible for it because it's not your fault. I mean, he wanted to absolve me from this feeling that while his daughter was starving to death, it was my fault. And I kept buying stocks and doing a little bit better all the time. And if the Republicans were in, it was okay, and it was because of them that I was doing well. And if they were out, forget it, it was all going to disappear. So I've seen a lot of American public opinion over the years. I've seen a lot of media commentary. I've seen the headlines. And when you get all through with it, this country has 6 times the per capita GDP growth, the GDP per capita that it had when I was born. One person's lifetime, 6-for-1 change. Everybody in this room essentially is living better in multiple ways than John D. Rockefeller Sr. was, who was the richest person, in the world during my early years. And we're all living better than he could live. So this is a remarkable, remarkable country, and we found something very special. I would love to be a baby being born in the United States today. Charlie, you give the other side of this.
Well, there's a tendency to think that our present politicians are much worse than any we had in the past. But we tend to forget how awful our politicians were in the past. I can remember a prominent senator arguing with an absolute earnestness that mediocre people ought to have more representation on the United States Supreme Court.
Yeah, he came from Nebraska, incidentally.
He did, he came from Nebraska. So we're not quite as bad as that yet.
Yeah. He succeeded my dad in the House of Representatives. Okay.
워렌 버핏은 미국의 정치적 분열에도 불구하고 경제와 국가가 지속적으로 번영해왔다고 설명합니다. 그는 자신의 투자 인생 동안 14명의 대통령 재임 기간에 1만 달러가 5,100만 달러로 성장했으며 쿠바 미사일 위기부터 금융공황까지 수많은 위기를 겪었지만 미국은 꾸준히 발전했다고 강조합니다. 버핏은 자신의 한 생애 동안 1인당 GDP가 6배 성장했으며 오늘날 보통 사람들도 과거 록펠러보다 나은 삶을 살고 있다는 점을 들어 미국 경제의 놀라운 성공을 증명합니다.